Welcome back, everybody. Derrick Soo, your 2022 Oakland Mayoral Candidate. Well, today is April 15th. Typically tax day, but 1 year ago, I started a protest. And this was called Where Do We Go, Oakland? And what that means is we have a homeless situation here, a very big crisis here in Oakland, and the city of Oakland was not listening to the homeless. They were just simply pushing people around and taking our stuff until we got a court order and an injunction to stop them. But then Oakland was famous for violating those court orders. So anyway, I started the protest, and what I was bringing the spotlight to was community land trusts, because there are all sorts of community land trusts out there. But I wanted one that was very personal to me, and it's a very large plot of open space in the Oakland Hills, and there's a reason why that it was never built upon, and that was the site that I chose for my protest 1 year ago. And the goal was to acquire a community land trust for myself, for the future, and for a future plan that I have in store. Also, I wanted to bring light to community land trusts for good use, and that's to create tiny home villages, or currently what we know as the pallet shelter villages, going up here in Oakland. Nikki Fornutato Bass has one, and then another one's being created through Carol Fife in District 3 in West Oakland. And so these are all influences that I've had through my association and attendance to the regular HOG meeting. HOG meaning Homeless Advocacy Working Group. And I've been there for a number of years, and we voiced a lot of different things. And here's what's interesting. The community land trust was brought up in several different ways, and it got turned down in many ways. But then I started asking around, well, where do we go? And this is part of my friend Andrea Henson, who actually started Where Do We Go? But she's in Berkeley, and she's now an attorney that fights evictions. But anyway, I want to talk about what I've accomplished in that 1 year period since my protest. Well, the first thing I did 1 year ago, I moved out of 77th Avenue and then up into the Oakland Hills at actually just 4 homes away from where my dad's home was, and I grew up there. I was a resident when my parents first moved in 1966, and I never left the neighborhood, really. I'd go visit my parents there, and when I lost everything in 2008, in 2009, my dad and I reconciled, and he allowed me to come back and just live in the home, he said, free of cost. And so that's what I did. And that's one of the reasons why Prop 13 was very important, but also using community land trusts. There were a lot of different things that happened, but that particular property down the street I grew up with, on and with in the neighborhood, so I know the whole history of that, and it's very interesting unless you know a lot about land and hydrology, and so I did, my brother did, And so we had a lot of inside knowledge on that particular hillside. But in the year since, I landed a full community land trust of 20 acres, and it's set aside right now. I don't have anything going on it, so I'm not going to exactly say where it is, but if you followed me, you probably already know where that is. And I acquired that through executive order, Gavin Newsom's executive order N2320. And so I have that property, and it's a very nice piece of property too. But also earlier this year, I spoke up and down the state about using community land trusts. I spoke last in Sacramento, and within 30 days of me speaking up there about the community land trust, the city of Sacramento bought 101 acres of open space land dedicated for housing and tiny homes for the homeless and affordable homes there in the south part of Sacramento. And likewise, San Jose is doing a very similar project, and up and down the state, I've been able to speak at city councils via Zoom to a lot of different city councils in San Diego, in Los Angeles, San Luis Obispo, and even locally here. I spoke with council people and representatives for Berkeley and for Richmond, and spoke to people on that council. So I speak up and down California, but also I've been associated with a lot of other projects around the country too. So one of my local seats that I was elected to was on the CAB board for Alameda Health Systems. They oversee all the ambulatory care for the county, Alameda County. I sat on that board for a little better than a year, and then I stepped down. We had some disagreements, and so it was better just for me to step down, which I did. But I did affect some change in a positive way on that board. So I do know how to legislate, and so a lot of folks are asking, well, what qualifies you, as a homeless person to be mayor? Have you done legislation? And I answered that to a person who asked, and I say, yeah, this is what I've done, and I've also worked alongside very powerful people. So I know politics, even though I don't like politics. But also another thing that has come out of the community land trust are the co-governed villages. Oakland has now moved to co-governed villages, and so it's not one agency that dictates everything. There's an actual government by the folks that are residents. They participate in their own government. So it's not a dictator rule anymore, and that's what needed to change. And we're still having issues with some agencies having to change to that new type of structure. So, but I have caused that through my work. Also, another thing that I've caused here, and a lot of you folks know that we have the RV safe park over here, and when it was first set up, I was complaining up and down, even got on TV about it, and how dangerous the electrical feed was for that, and how underpowered it was, and it was going to cost somebody their lives. And then not even within 20 days, somebody did nearly lose their life over there. And so they upgraded to all the suggestions that I had backed and endorsed. And so I made it much safer for everybody over there. EB Mud. EB Mud I now has a program that I help initiate, and then my friend Kyle Mitchell, he legislated and advocated all the way through, and then we got a lot of support through EB Mud for what we were trying to do. And now we have the ability for businesses to donate up to 1,000 gallons of water to a homeless encampment per day out of their own tap. Whereas before, if they tried to do that, they could have their water actually shut off and fined. They would be fined for the transport and sale of water. So anyway, I got that antiquated law removed from the books and a Samaritan law installed. So I'm very proud of that, and that was covered in the oaklandside.org article a year ago. Actually a little better than a year ago, because I went up the hill in April. I believe that was back in February. So look back 2 months on February or March in Oakland side for that article. And I talk about water access and what we were doing. So we did that. We have good crime reduction here. Oakland, here in East Oakland, we've had an increase of new officers here to the Eastmont station, and it's helped to remove a lot of the crime. Also, one of the things that we do here, this camp does cooperate with law enforcement as much as possible. And we have cameras that record everything from beginning of the street to the end of the street. And so the shooting that we had here back on March 26th, that suspect is no longer running the streets. That suspect is behind bars. Everything was on video, clearly showed his face and the vehicle, everything. And the female is the accomplice. She's having a hard time also explaining how she's not involved. So we cooperate with the police here as much as possible, and all law enforcement. Then let's see, we also deal with the illegal dumpers. They used to dump at the end of the street, and then we had a few of them caught, and because they were also dumping around the corner. And I spoke with some of the neighborhood trash patrol officers, and I told them we need to put up a camera. And I told them a few places that are real hot spots. They also agreed. We have one camera close by, and it does 360 degrees. It's been very effective. It stopped all the illegal dumping in that zone, and it stopped all the stolen cars being dumped over there in that zone. So that's something else that I had an effect on. Then yeah, I've also been more involved with making sure the folks here at Rangers Community have been fairly treated and have now been entered into some supportive housing program, and they have continuum of care. So the street care that they were getting here from Roots transfers with them to a doctor, a primary care doctor, and an assigned hospital for those individuals. that require that. And then housing. Housing is fully supportive housing, and folks are allowed to bring their pets too. And then we also have the conversions going on at the Days Hotel, and those are being converted to kitchenettes, every one of them. And so I don't know where they're at this time, but I have folks over there who said that they absolutely love the kitchenettes. That's something that has been close to my heart, and glad to see that that actually did happen. Then we also operate the Community Pantry here, and what that does is, a lot of folks say, well, what you're doing, you're feeding the criminals. Actually, that is wrong. A lot of folks are stealing because they're hungry, because there are no resources. Here, we are a resource for people that are hungry and want something to eat. And so we're that difference between them stealing or shoplifting or having something legitimate to eat without having to be show ID and everything else. It's just freely given to us folks. So we have seen a reduction in crime, and the neighborhood tells me that. And so it's the businesses, the residents tell me that crime has dropped. And also because we have the cameras, we have the increased law enforcement in the area. Also, all the way through to the BART station, we're covered. So we work with all of the law enforcement agencies, especially when they sometimes end up down here. Also work with a lot of the housing programs that out of the 32 folks here, I've been able to get 28 into housing, permanent supportive housing. Out of 32, that's 28 people. So I only have four folks left, and these are the more difficult ones. And Gavin Newsom talked about mental court, and so these are folks that would qualify under that, and the need that we have to get folks like that the help that they truly need. And also this pushes out into the open the criminal element that has taken over a lot of encampments, and they hide in plain sight as homeless people, and they're not. And some of these are organized criminals. I've personally dealt with them, and we've had exchanges out here. People have been shot, and we have a lot of law enforcement to help us now. And so that it's sad that that's happening, but this is one of the reasons why I do endorse that mental court competency. I went through it. That's something that also happens to a lot of seniors, a competency hearing to see if they have enough mental capacity to make good judgments for themselves. And in this case, because they don't want homes for whatever reason and would not likely go to the spot that I'm also having looked at again and reviewed once I get in office, we'll really move forward with that. And so a lot of you folks that know that I have two things on the books, a big plan to restore Oakland and West Oakland, and then also redevelop and reuse Oakland Middle Harbor for another use as a destination location of some form. And then the same thing with the Oakland Coliseum site, that Oakland now shares ownership with the A's management organization. So these are all things that I've helped to establish and get open and start moving forward with the city council members, operation of city council members, and if I am elected, I also want to reestablish a relationship with the Alameda County supervisors once again. Because if you look at what all the large cities are doing, they have city and county on good relations in most cases. Oakland and Alameda County is different, is that we have no relations with each other, and getting things done is very, very difficult at best. But, also, some of the other things that I've done to assist the community here in Oakland, we've had a top 10 polluter of entire California right here right on our doorsteps, called ABNI Foundry. And so I worked with several local agencies, also communities for a better environment here in East Oakland, and then also Rob Bonta's office, and turned over a lot of the evidence that we had, and based on those lawsuits, ABNI is now shutting down operations and moving out of California. And while I don't like the idea that, we lost 200 jobs, but these were 200 jobs that were doing more harm to the community than there was good. We have several generations of harm that are downwind from the emission stacks that have poison with the hexavalent chromium, which is a cancer-causing agent. And so we have folks with respiratory issues, lots of asthma, and things that are all caused by that. So I assisted them, Rob Bonta's office, in order to cause them to close their doors and leave California. And it was better for them to leave the community, because 80% of all their product that they manufacture here does not benefit the city of Oakland or Alameda County in any way. Back when that foundry was made and created, Oakland was under construction, and they needed to have cast iron pipe and in great quantity, and to be able to manufacture it in close proximity. So there was a use for it back then, but then all of a sudden homes started popping up downwind, and here we have an elementary school less than 3/4 of a mile downwind of ABNI. So we no longer will have that by the end of the year. And I am actually proud to say that I have helped to make the community better and healthier and safer. Also, I've been a guest speaker for different Zoom talks, for Zoom meetings, and then also just not too long ago with the Berkeley law students about ABNI and some of the things that were related to that. So I do a lot of talks, community talks, about what's happening, and sometimes you'll see me on the radio. You probably have last seen me in the San Francisco Chronicle back in November, I believe it was, where it talks about the homegrown homeless and the crises that we have here. Well, I do have the solutions that Oakland truly needs. I attend the RENA meetings. I know exactly the numbers and how we can get there, and also create really good living wage paying jobs, increase union membership, increase the residents, and make Oakland a city of pride once again and not a city of dread. So thanks for joining me today. We'll be right back.